right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called City of Women, 1980. I'm giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I dislike this one, which is not surprising because the only decent movies from Fellini, the art house director from Italy, are the 1950s black and white movies that he did, 1950s to 1960s. Everything else, well, I'd say late 50s to early 60s. Let me put it to you that way. Was very good, and then it went downhill fast from there. City of Women, Italian La Città delle Donne, is a 1980 Italian fantasy comedy drama. Film co-written with Bernardino Zapponi and Brunello Rondi and directed by Federico Fellini. This is not to be confused with the medieval feminist work called The Book of the City of Ladies. Amid Fellini's characteristic combination of dreamlike, outrageous, and artistic imagery, Marcello Mastroianni, pardon my Italian, we'll just call him Marcello, plays Snoperaz, a man who voyages through male and female spaces toward a confrontation with his own attitudes toward women and his wife. Snoperaz wakes up during a train ride and he has a brief fling with the woman in the bathroom, but it's cut short when the train suddenly stops and the woman gets off. The only reason to watch this are the TNA scenes. Skip everything else. Snoperaz follows her into the woods through a wilderness and into a grand hotel overrun with women in attendance for a surrealistic feminist convention. He winds up in a conference about polyandry where his presence is rejected. A frightened Snoperaz, retreats to the hotel lobby, but the exit is blocked. Instead, he seeks refuge inside an elevator with the girl, Donatella, who offers her assistance. Donatella leaves Snoperaz into a gymnasium, and he forces him to don roller skates. He is yet again cornered and berated by a group of angry women who circle around him in roller skates, and they practice testicle kicking into a dummy. Dazed, Snoperaz makes his exit down a flight of stairs, falling down and hurting himself, and into the domain of a burly woman tending to the hotel's furnace. The woman offers him a ride to a train station on her motorcycle, but she stops by a farm and she lures Snoperaz into a nursery where she tries to rape him. This is a scene worth watching here. This rape is cut short by the woman's mother, who steps in to chastise her daughter. Snoperaz escapes, and he follows a lonely woman through the countryside. He joins her and her girlfriends in a car ride on the promise of being delivered to the station, but the ride goes on well into the night, the women smoking cannabis and listening to Italo Disco. Italo Disco evolved from then current underground dance, pop, and electronic music, both domestic and foreign, developed into a diverse genre. Between the jazz and the Italo Disco, the The music in this was horrible. The scenes were confusing and it tried to be weird and surrealistic, but it was just inane and stupid. Like most Fellini movies of this time period, a frustrated Snapperas ditches the woman only to be harassed by others. He finally finds shelter at the mansion of Dr. Xavier Catzone, who shoots at his persecutors. Catzone is the reason to watch this, but apparently he died while during the filming because he kept a pistol and he shot himself in the ding-a-ling. That's what the bonus feature said. There's like 2 hours of bonus features on this thing. Dr. Catzone promises to deliver Snapperas to the train station in the morning, and Catzone invites him to stay for a party. Snapperas walks around Catzone's extravagant home, which is filled with sexual imagery and phallic sculptures. He is also fascinated by a collection of photographs on the manor walls commemorating Catzone's sexual conquest. The photos light up and whisper arousing dialogue. Taking pride in his many inventions, Catzone celebrates his 10,000th conquest with an eccentric party that involves the blowing out of 10,000 candles and a performance by his wife in which she sucks coins and pearls into her vagina by means of telekinesis. During the party, Snapperas comes across his ex-wife, Elena, who has a drunken argument with him, and he meets Donatella again. The police, composed solely of women dressed in Nazi attire, arrive, interrupting Catzone mid-song and announcing the imminent demolition of his house. They also inform him that they have shot his most beloved dog, Italo, while a grieving Catzone buries. Meanwhile, Snapperas dances to a song by Fred Astaire with a scantily clad Donatella and a friend of hers, but he fails to sleep with either of them, instead getting stuck in bed with his ex-wife. Hearing another great scene, by the way, hearing strange noises, he crawls under the bed, entering another dreamlike world in which he slides down a toboggan, revisiting his childhood crushes, a sister, a nurse, a prostitute along the way. The prostitute is a reason to watch. So we've got 3 scenes in here of TNA that are worth watching. And the scenes are about 5 minutes total between all 3 of them. So not a good reason to give it 2 out of 5 stars, but the film does have its moments. There are some other sort of funny scenes, but not really. All right, so he's revisiting his childhood crushes along the way down the slide, the toboggan, whatever that is. Caged at the end of the slide, he is transported before a strange court and judged for his masculinity. Dismissed and set free, he climbs into a towering boxing ring before a female crowd. The top of the ring, he boards a hot air balloon in the form of Donatella. Donatella herself fires at him from below with a machine gun, bursting the balloon and sending Snapperas plummeting. Snapperas wakes up on the very same train from the beginning of the film, indicating the entire story has been a mere nightmare. Just as he comes to this conclusion, he realizes his glasses are broken, as in the dream, and the wagon is filled by the women that crowded his dream. City of Women opened City of Women opened in Italian theaters in March 1980, and it generally received favorable reviews bordering on respect rather than praise. Corriere della Sera critic Giovanni Grazzini interpreted the film as a catalog of emotions, sometimes grotesque, sometimes farcical, which provides a few caustic jibes against the destruction of femininity by aggressive feminism. From a stylistic point of view, it's less homogeneous than usual, but other parts of the film are delightful. For instance, when fantasy is used to create types of people rather than caricatures. In this sense, Fellini, having abandoned his gallery of monsters, becomes more prosaic, or when the ambiguity of certain characters, an excellent example is the soubrette played by the charming Donatella Damiani, provides a touch of grace and bitchiness, or when the film becomes almost a musical, or when paradox becomes surrealist, such as The Party and the Hurricane at the Villa at Cazzoni, who's in despair because his favorite dog has died. Fellini appears as the Madame Bovary of his adolescence, wrote Claudio G. Fava for Corriere Mercantile. He reveals in the enjoyment he feels at working with an experienced crew side by side with faithful technicians who simulate trains on the move or the sea washing the shores of the inevitable Romagnol beaches as though they were working on the set of George Méliès. But then again and again, Fellini has shown us that he is the greatest and most ingenious of Méliès's heirs. Only the magic does not always work, especially in the attempt to create a kind of astonished confession of amused impotence when faced with the new women of today, together with a feeling of nostalgia for the old women of the past. Despite Fellini's extraordinary virtuosity, the film rarely achieves harmony of inspiration, of order, of strip cartoon fantasy, or of irony. Francesco Balzoni of El Avenir insisted that Fellini was only playing games, but then we would hardly expect from Fellini a deep analysis of the nature of women. It is a game with occasional gaps and more often inventions that rejuvenate an all too familiar and all too hackneyed subject. Surprising serenity predominates. It's a film with a tragic vein that in the end proves to be lighthearted and occasionally amusing. Yeah, notice the operative word occasionally. Few and far between, I think I would say few and far between amusing scenes. Mostly boring. La Notte magazine's Giorgio Carboni felt the maestro had finally reached a splendid maturity that permits him to lavish his treasures upon us for the simple pleasure of doing so. Behind the festival of images and colors, we can feel his delight in making this film, a delight which, for the first scene, becomes ours too. And it's something we haven't felt in a long time. The film lacks suspense in its story. We care little what happens to Snapperaz or Cazzoni because we know that sooner or later Romini and those Bosumi extras will appear on the scene. There's suspense in the images and in the scene inventions. Screened out of competition on May 19, 1980 at the 33rd Cannes Film Festival, the film was badly received by the majority of French critics, some of whom offered reviewed titles such as Zero for Fellini, Tiring Deception, a disaster, as well as a mountain of tedious pretension. Now that's a good description. A mountain of tedious pretension. just because it has Fellini's name on it, thinks he can pump out whatever trash that occurred towards the end of his review, toward the end of his career, review. Toward the end of his career, he can just pump out as much trash as he wants. The audience be damned. Russian film director Andrei Tarkovsky in Rome that year for the pre-production of Nostalgia noted in his diary that City of Women was a fiasco at the Cannes Film Festival. The paper said that Fellini's last film was a total disaster and that he himself had ceased to exist. It's terrible, but it's true. His film is worthless. Now that's an accurate description. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's not completely worthless, but I disliked it. Released by New Yorker Films in the United States on April 8, 1981, the film garnered generally favorable reviews but little box office success. Daniel Talbot of New Yorker Films offered an explanation for the public's lack of interest. Here it played in less than 50 theaters. That's another thing. It's 139 minutes. Way too long. Way too long. Boring. The production company is Opera Film Produzioni. Opera Film Produzioni. Distributed by Gaumont Italia. Release dates March 28, 1980 in Italy, November 5th, 1980 in France. All right. What do we got here? I don't know what Gaumont or Fellini could have expected with this kind of personal film. He has lost most of the audience here by then, which isn't to say I don't think him one of the greatest filmmakers of the world. For Vincent Canby of the New York Times, however, the film was a success, though the film is overlong. Even for a Fellini aficionado, it is spellbinding, a dazzling visual display that is part burlesque, part satire, part Foley's Bergère, and all cinema. Snapperaz is haunted by the phantoms of all the women he has known or wanted to know from childhood on. Mr. Fellini in City of Women is obsessed by his own feelings toward women, by his need for them, his treatment mostly poor of them, his continued fascination by them, and his awareness that, thanks heavens, they'll always be different. Although City of Women is about a libertine, it's anything but licentious. Mr. Fellini's licentiousness suggests a profound longing for some kind of protective discipline, if not complete chastity. As such discipline would destroy Snapperaz, it would make impossible the conception and production of a film as wonderfully uninhibited as City of Women. John Gould Boyum of the Wall Street Journal observed that the film's entire thrust has little or nothing to do with the striking of attitudes, the analyzing of ideas. What Fellini seems after here is the recording and communicating of a set of feelings, those complex, contradictory ones, experienced by a middle-aged Italian male suddenly faced with a cataclysmic upheaval in social and sexual wars. I like it when he says, I turned 50, and 50 is nifty. I want to have that kind of attitude at the age of 52, but no such luck yet. I'm still getting started here with my 50 is nifty. We do not go to Fellini to immerse ourselves in story and character or to encounter ideas. What we want from the maestro and what he gives us are fabulous adventures and feeling, decidedly original mixture of nostalgia, poignancy, and joy that is unmistakably Fellini's own. And there it is. 20 minutes of Wikipedia. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm saying it's mostly bad, but there are some people who actually enjoy watching this nonsense. Don't ask me why. Oh, and Karate Man commented on my last video. I guess he's too busy to be in the chat room. British Crumpet Man and Adrian are nowhere to be found. And I won't be doing any reviews tomorrow unless it's super early in the morning. Karate Man won't be around. Because I'm still watching the Renegade television show that Karate Man recommended. I'm only about maybe a quarter of the way through, just like I'm about a quarter of the way going down my list. I bought this book for my son because my ex-wife was too cheap to get it for him. Came in the mail today, so that was pretty cool. He'll be excited to get this book. Come on. I'm trying to pull up my Netflix queue so I can tell you what's coming down the pike. I already show you what the discs look like. We're giving City of Women 2 out of 5 stars. Next up is P.D. Wheatstraw. I'm looking forward to that one. It's only an hour and 39 minutes. I should be able to get through that pretty quick. And of course, my Netflix is not cooperating here. I'm about ready to cook some bacon burger before I watch the P.D. Wheatstraw. Oh, man. Come on. What is wrong with my Netflix queue? I had it up and then it turned blank. This is frustrating. Ugh. Come on. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so City of Women were given. Oh, it did it again. You know what? I'm just going to close the window and then open it back up again. We'll see how that goes. I've got 500 discs on my Netflix queue and nothing on my saved queue, of course, because my saved queue doesn't exist. Netflix is going to stop sending me discs on September 29th, which is why I started doing my combined list. I don't even remember what's on my my saved queue. I know there was what was that British television show, the spy one, the Avengers. I had the Avengers on there. I had Vampire Kiss. I had a Tinto Brass, Nazi exploitation movie, Nazi exploitation. I don't even know how to say that. Anyways, next up is The Rapist and the Devil, double bill. After that is The Crow, which I think might be a Karate Man recommendation. Yeah, I think it is, because they're kind of grouped together here. Two Karate Man recommendations: The Crow and Out for Justice with Steven Seagal. The Crow is Brandon Lee, of course. Brandon Lee kind of suffered the same fate as his father. He died too young. Anyways, The Rapist, the Devil, double bill on the Tales of Voodoo disc. Some South Korean horror going on. South Korea and Hong Kong. Horror Meisters. Then The Crow, Brandon Lee, 1994, and Out for Justice, Steven Seagal, 1991. So those are my next three coming down the pike for next week. Laters.